Welcome to This Explainer. Okay, 8th grade scholars, today we are unpacking a seriously crucial part of your curriculum. We're going to dive into your text focus on generating and refining research questions. But honestly, more importantly, we're going to learn the absolute ultimate secret to academic success. Whether you're tackling a massive end-of-year paper or just trying to figure out how to build a potato battery for the science fair, what you learn today is basically going to change the way you work forever. It is all about the art of research planning. Here is our roadmap for today. We'll be hitting the blueprint for success, plotting your research steps, gathering your essential tools, mastering your timeline, seeing it in action, and finally, education with a purpose. Let's jump right in. Section 1. The Blueprint for Success. To lay our foundation, our source material actually kicks things off with a timeless piece of wisdom from Luke 14:28. It asks, "Suppose one of you wants to build a tower. Won't you first sit down and estimate the cost to see if you have enough money to complete it?" This perfectly captures our foundational why. I mean, think about it for a second. Would you ever start stacking heavy bricks, pouring concrete, and putting up steel beams without a reliable blueprint? No way! Your research project is your tower. Before you write a single word, you have to sit down and estimate the cost. And in academic terms, that cost is your time, your resources, and the steps needed to actually cross the finish line. Without a plan? Well, jumping blindly into a project creates a messy, anxiety-inducing trap. You end up reading stuff you don't even need, losing your notes, and just wasting an incredible amount of effort. It's confusing. But with a plan, it's a total game changer. A solid plan is your ultimate stress reliever. It keeps your hard work laser-focused on your goals with clear, actionable steps. In real life, almost every major project requires a plan, right? Developing this habit now is going to help you succeed in school and college and way beyond. Moving right along to Section 2, Plotting Your Research Steps. So there are 3 core pillars to building your research plan. Step 1 is outlining your steps. Step 2 is identifying your resources. And Step 3 is organizing your time. These 3 pillars serve as the ultimate guide to taking your project from this simple, vague idea floating in your head all the way to a spectacular final presentation. If you master these 3 steps, honestly, no project will ever feel too big or too intimidating again. Now, breaking down that first pillar, the crucial part is that you always start with a clear research question. That is your guiding star. Once you have that question, you list every single action you're going to take to answer it. Are you going to read specific books, search online databases, maybe conduct interviews with experts, or collect surveys from your classmates? The big takeaway here is that each step must have a clear purpose. You aren't just reading a book for the fun of it. You're reading it to find a very specific answer to your research question. Which brings us to Section 3, Gathering Your Essential Tools. Let's look at a really practical example. Say your project is finding the best plants for a school garden. What are your tools? Well, you'll definitely need gardening books. You might need to talk to a local gardening expert. You absolutely need the schoolyard measurements so you actually know how much space you're working with, and you'll need seed catalogs. By outlining exactly what you need right at the very beginning, you avoid those super frustrating surprises later on. Imagine getting halfway through the project only to realize you don't even know the size of the garden. Knowing your resources early is a massive time saver. Next up, Section 4, Mastering Your Timeline. Let's see how this actually builds a totally stress-free experience. Take this timeline for a hypothetical project on the history of jazz in America. Breaking a daunting month-long task into bite-sized weekly deadlines makes it completely manageable. Week 1 is purely gathering sources. Week 2 is dedicated to taking notes. Week 3 is when you finally write the draft. And Week 4 is left entirely for revising and presenting. If you just looked at the prompt, write a giant paper on the history of jazz, you'd probably panic. But can you gather sources for a week? Yeah, of course you can. Can you take notes the next week? Absolutely. A solid timeline basically protects your future self. All right, Section 5, Seeing It in Action. Here is the golden ticket, a basic plan working in perfect harmony. Look at the flow here. The research question is highly specific. How does volunteering affect teen mental health? The steps directly answer that question. Find articles, interview actual volunteers, analyze that data, and write the report. And the timeline sets the boundary, 4 weeks total, with specific due dates for each step. This just proves how outlining your question, your steps, and your timeline creates an unstoppable strategy. When your teacher asks for a project proposal, this is exactly what they want to see. Now, I want you to actively engage with this for a second. Our source material includes a homework challenge. The topic is Effects of Video Games on Learning. I want you to think critically about this right now. How would you apply the blueprint we just discussed? What specific research question would you pull out of this broad topic? What steps would you take? Who could you interview? By practicing this on a topic that's actually fun and relevant to you, you're training your brain to tackle any subject without getting overwhelmed. Finally, Section 6, Education with a Purpose. The source material for today's explainer comes from the Academy Godly Learners series, which frames its curriculum around a very specific worldview. The authors pose a really thought-provoking question. What is the point of being smart and supposedly educated if you just continue to make bad choices that end up hurting you or others? According to their educational philosophy, being incredibly smart just isn't quite enough on its own. They teach that pairing an amazing academic education with biblical morality is how you ensure that knowledge is used to make positive, constructive life choices. So, from their perspective, it's really about combining intellectual planning with moral planning. To summarize this philosophy, our source material leaves us with Romans 8:6-7. The mind governed by the flesh is death, but the mind governed by the Spirit is life and peace. Just like a well-thought-out research plan brings order and calm to the chaos of a messy school project, the source curriculum emphasizes that aligning your mind with spiritual principles brings personal peace. It's a dual focus, right? Structure your projects to find academic peace and, according to this framework, structure your choices to find personal peace. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. I'm going to leave you with this. What project will you build your very first blueprint for today?